In the shadows of a dense forest, a pair of eyes glints in the darkness, warily scanning the surroundings. The creature emerges from the foliage, moving with a peculiar gait, not quite upright, yet unmistakably different from the other apes of the forest. This is Ardipithecus ramidus, and though it doesn't have consciousness yet, it stands at the dawn of a remarkable journey. For millions of years, the forests of Africa have been a cradle of evolution, a crucible in which the fires of natural selection have forged countless forms of life. Among the branches and beneath the canopies, a drama has played out, a struggle for survival, a dance of adaptation and extinction. And at the heart of this drama, a lineage of apes has been quietly transforming, setting the stage for the emergence of a species that would change the face of the planet forever. The story of our evolution is one of triumph against the odds, a tale of how a humble forest dweller became the master of the planet. But it is also a story of struggle, of the challenges that shaped us, the competitors that sharpened our wits, and the narrow escapes that brought us to where we are today. To truly understand this story, we must go back to the beginning, to a time before the first glimmers of humanity had appeared in the eyes of our ancestors. We must journey to the birthplace of our lineage, to the ancient forests of Africa. 4 million years ago, the forests of East Africa were a paradise, a realm of plenty where fruit hung heavy from the branches, and the air hummed with the sounds of life. But beneath it, a fierce competition was playing out. For in these forests, a host of ape species was looking out for resources, each one fighting in the complex web of the ecosystem. Among these apes were the early hominins, not quite human, but no longer quite ape. They were the pioneers of a new way of life, the first steps on the long road to humanity. And of these early hominins, one of the most intriguing was Ardipithecus ramidus. At first glance, Ardipithecus would have seemed little different from the other apes of the forest. It moved primarily on all fours, grasping branches with its curved fingers and toes. Its brain was small, its face protruding, but there were subtle differences. The shape of its pelvis, the structure of its feet. These were the first hints of a creature caught between two worlds. Though it still spent much of its time in the trees, Ardipithecus had begun to venture out onto the forest floor more often than its ancestors. Perhaps driven by competition, perhaps lured by new food sources, these early hominins were starting to explore a new realm. But the forest floor was a dangerous place for a creature not yet adapted to it. In the shadows, predators waited for them. Saber-toothed cats with scimitar fangs, hyenas the size of lions with bone-crushing jaws, giant eagles that could snatch an unwary ape from the forest floor. For Ardipithecus, each day into this new world was a calculated risk, a trade-off between opportunity and danger. But with risk came reward. On the forest floor, Ardipithecus found new foods to sustain it. Tough-skinned tubers that could be unearthed with clever fingers, protein-rich insects that could be plucked from the soil, and perhaps most importantly, it found a new perspective, a glimpse of a world beyond the trees, a world of vast horizons and untapped potential. As Ardipithecus and its kind ventured further into this new frontier, they began to change. Their feet grew more robust, their legs more powerful. They began to stand more upright, freeing their hands for new tasks. And in their eyes, a new light began to glimmer. The light of understanding, the light of a creature that was beginning to shape its own destiny. But Ardipithecus was only the beginning. As the climate shifted and the forests gave way to woodlands and grasslands, new challenges arose. And with each challenge, the hominins adapted and evolved, moving ever closer to the creature we would one day become. As the lush forests of the Pliocene gave way to the more open landscapes of the Pleistocene, a new character stepped onto the stage of human evolution. Its name was Australopithecus afarensis, but it would be forever immortalized by a more familiar moniker, Lucy. Discovered in the Afar region of Ethiopia in 1974, Lucy was a small female, standing just over a meter tall. But what she lacked in stature, she made up for in significance. For Lucy and her kin were the first hominins to truly break free from the confines of the forest and make the savanna their home. The shift from forest to savanna was a pivotal moment in our evolution. The open grasslands presented a host of new challenges: searing heat, sparse shade, vast distances between food and water. But they also offered new opportunities. a bounty of energy-rich tubers and roots, a plethora of prey animals to be hunted. To thrive in this new world, the australopiths had to adapt, and adapt they did. Their teeth grew larger and more robust, able to process the tough, fibrous plants of the savanna. Their jaws became more powerful, able to bite and chew for hours on end. And most importantly, their locomotion changed. Lucy and her kind were the first hominins to walk consistently on two legs. This bipedalism was a key adaptation, one that would shape the course of human evolution for millions of years to come. By freeing their hands from the task of locomotion, the australopiths could carry food and tools, could gather and hunt more effectively, and by standing upright, they could see over the tall grasses of the savanna, spotting predators and prey from afar. But the transition to bipedalism was not without its costs. Moving on two legs is an energetically expensive way to get around, and it leaves the body vulnerable to injury. The australopiths had to balance these costs against the benefits of their new lifestyle. In many ways, Lucy and her kind were creatures in transition. They retained many features of their tree-dwelling ancestors. Curved fingers for grasping branches, long arms for reaching fruit, but they were also pioneering a new way of life, one that would eventually lead to the emergence of our own genus Homo. As the australopiths spread across the African savanna, they diversified into a range of species. Some, like Australopithecus africanus, remained primarily vegetarian, subsisting on the tough plants of the grasslands. Others, like Australopithecus garhi, began to incorporate more meat into their diet, using crude stone tools to scavenge from predator kills. But of all these species, it was Lucy's that would give rise to the most successful hominin lineage of all. For from the loins of Australopithecus afarensis, a new species would emerge, one that would take the adaptations of the australopiths and push them even further. A species that would in time come to dominate the planet, the species we know today as Homo. But before we follow the story of Homo, we must first take a detour. For the savanna of East Africa was not the sole domain of the australopiths. Another lineage of hominins was also making its mark on this landscape, a lineage that would ultimately represent an evolutionary dead end, but which nonetheless left an indelible imprint on the story of human origins. Paranthropus boisei, affectionately known as Nutcracker Man, was a remarkable creature, robust and powerfully built, with a skull like a football helmet and teeth like a bear's. Paranthropus was a hominin adapted to a very specific niche. In the ever-changing landscape of the African Pleistocene, where shifting climates and tectonic upheavals conspired to transform lush forests into mosaic savannas, Paranthropus found its calling. As the tough, fibrous grasses and sedges of the savanna replaced the tender leaves and fruits of the forest, Paranthropus evolved to exploit this new resource. With its massive jaws and teeth, Paranthropus could generate bite forces unmatched by any other hominin. This allowed it to subsist on foods that others couldn't access, hard, abrasive plant matter that would wear down the teeth of any other creature. In a sense, Paranthropus represented the ultimate expression of a trend that had been playing out among the hominins for millions of years, the trend towards increasing specialization. From the generalized apes of the Miocene to the savanna-adapted australopiths, each step in our evolution had seen hominins becoming more and more finely tuned to specific ecological niches, and Paranthropus was the epitome of this trend. With its hyper-robust cranial features and its laser-like focus on tough vegetation, it was a hominin honed to perfection for a single way of life. But therein lay its downfall. For in the game of evolution, specialization is a double-edged sword. A specialist can thrive when conditions are just right, when its particular niche is abundant and competitors are few. But when the environment shifts, when the niche disappears, the specialist finds itself in an unfortunate position. And that is exactly what happened to Paranthropus. As the African climate shifted once again, becoming drier and more variable, the lush grasslands that had sustained Nutcracker Man began to disappear. The tough, abrasive foods that it had evolved to eat became scarcer, and Paranthropus found itself facing a crisis. Unable to adapt, unable to pivot to new resources, Paranthropus began to decline. Slowly at first, then with increasing rapidity, its populations dwindled. And in the end, after 1 million years of success, Nutcracker Man vanished from the fossil record, a victim of its own specialization. It's a sobering reminder of the fickleness of evolution, of the perils of putting all one's eggs in one ecological basket. And it's a lesson that our own lineage, the lineage of Homo, would do well to heed. For as Paranthropus was making its last stand on the savannas of East Africa, another drama was playing out to the north. In the Rift Valley of Ethiopia, a new hominin was emerging, a hominin that would change the course of evolution forever. Its name was homohabilis, and it was about to set in motion a chain of events that would lead, inexorably, to the rise of our own species, Homo sapiens. But homohabilis was not alone in this evolutionary drama. It shared the stage with another hominin, one that had been evolving in parallel with it for hundreds of thousands of years. That hominin was Australopithecus garhi, and its story is linked with that of Homo habilis. In many ways, Australopithecus garhi was the last of its kind, the final flourishing of the Australopith lineage. Larger and more robustly built than its predecessors, with a brain approaching the size of early Homo, garhi represented the apex of Australopith evolution. But even as garhi was reaching its evolutionary zenith, the seeds of its demise were being sown. For in the rapidly changing world of the African Pleistocene, a new competitor was emerging, a competitor that would ultimately outshine and outlast all of the Australopiths. That competitor was Homo, and its rise would mark the beginning of a new chapter in the human story. A chapter that would see hominins spread across the globe, master fire and stone, and ultimately conquer the very planet itself. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, let's return to the Rift Valley of Ethiopia, 2.3 million years ago. Let's meet Homo habilis, the diminutive hominin with a revolutionary new technology. And let's set the stage for the most consequential evolutionary transition in the history of our lineage, the transition from Australopithecus to Homo. This is Homo habilis, the handyman, and though it bears a striking resemblance to the Australopiths that came before it, there is something different about this hominin, something in the way it moves, in the glint of intelligence in its eyes. At first glance, Homo habilis seems an unlikely candidate for evolutionary success. Smaller and more lightly built than the robust Australopiths, with a brain only slightly larger, it appears ill-equipped for the rigors of life on the African savanna. But appearances can be deceiving. For Homo habilis has a secret weapon, a technological innovation that will change the course of human history. In its hands, clutched tightly and wielded with purpose, is a tool, a crude chopper, fashioned from a lump of lava rock. It may not look like much, just a sharpened edge and a rounded grip. But in the evolutionary arms race of the Pleistocene, this simple tool is a game changer. With it, Homo habilis can do things that no hominin has done before. It can butcher carcasses more efficiently, accessing the protein-rich marrow within the bones. It can dig for tubers and roots, unlocking a new source of calories. It can defend itself against predators, wielding the sharp edge as a weapon. In short, the stone tool opens up a new world of possibilities for Homo habilis. It allows this small, seemingly disadvantaged hominin to punch above its weight, to compete with the larger and stronger creatures that share its environment. And as Homo habilis begins to thrive, as its populations grow and spread across the African landscape, something remarkable starts to happen. The stone tool, once a rare and precious innovation, becomes commonplace. Across the continent, from the shores of Lake Turkana to the caves of South Africa, the distinctive chop of stone against stone rings out, the sound of a new era dawning. For Homo habilis, the stone tool is more than just a useful implement. It is a symbol of a new way of life, a new way of being in the world, And as the millennia pass, as homohabilis evolves and adapts, the stone tool evolves with it. New techniques are developed, new materials are experimented with. The crude choppers of the early days give way to more sophisticated hand axes, to delicate blades and piercing spear points. But the stone tool is just the beginning, as Homo habilis gives way to Homo erectus. As the hominins spread out of Africa and into the wider world, new technologies and new ways of life will emerge. Fire will be tamed, language will be born, art and symbolism will blossom. The very fabric of human existence will be rewoven, as our ancestors transform from mere creatures of the savannah to the most dominant species on the planet, Homo erectus, the upright man. Taller and leaner than its predecessors, with a brain that rivals that of modern humans. Homo erectus is a creature built for the long haul. Its body is a marvel of evolutionary engineering, a bipedal frame that conserves energy, a complex brain that allows for unprecedented levels of social cooperation and problem solving. With these adaptations, Homo erectus is poised to take on the world. From the heartlands of Africa, Homo erectus spreads out in waves, colonizing new continents and new climates with astonishing speed. In the lush tropics of Southeast Asia, Homo erectus finds a Garden of Eden, a land of plenty where fruit hangs low and game is abundant. Here, amid the steaming rainforests and languid rivers, a new subspecies emerges, Homo erectus solensis, the solo man of Java. Meanwhile, on the windswept steppes of Central Asia, another branch of the Homo erectus family is taking root. These are the Peking men of Zhoukoudian, hardy and resourceful hominins, adapted to the brutal cold of the Ice Age. And in the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia, yet another population is making its mark. These are the intrepid explorers of Dmanisi, the first hominins to leave Africa and venture into the unknown lands of Eurasia, across the vast expanse of the Old World, from the Javan jungle to the Chinese plain to the Georgian highlands. Homo erectus is building a new empire, and at the heart of this empire lies a secret weapon, fire. We don't know exactly when or where fire was first tamed by human hands. Perhaps it was a chance discovery, a stray lightning bolt that set a dry savanna ablaze. Or perhaps it was the work of a curious mind, a proto-Prometheus who dared to steal the flame from nature's hearth. But what we do know is that once hominins learned to control fire, there was no going back. Fire provided warmth in the cold of night, light in the darkness of caves. It allowed for the cooking of food, making nutrients more accessible and reducing the energy spent on digestion. Fire also opened up new frontiers for the hominins. With fire, they could venture into colder climates, could clear forests and shape landscapes to their liking. Fire became a tool of transformation, a way of molding the world to human needs and desires. And as Homo erectus mastered the flame, something else was happening too. In the flickering light of the campfire, in the dancing shadows on the cave wall, a new kind of cognition was emerging. Around the fire, Homo erectus gathered to share food, to swap stories, to cement social bonds. In the intimate glow of the flames, they began to communicate in new ways, not just with grunts and gestures, but with words and symbols, with the first stirrings of language and culture. We see hints of this new cognitive realm in the archaeological record of Homo erectus, in the carefully crafted hand axes of Gesher Benot Yaakov, Israel, symmetrical and aesthetically pleasing beyond mere utility, in the incised ochre plaques of Blombos Cave, South Africa, abstract patterns that hint at symbolic thought, and perhaps most intriguingly, in the faint traces of campfires and charred bones from sites across the Old World, from Chesawanja in Kenya to Zhoukoudian in China, the ghostly remains of ancient hearths, of communal feasts and fireside gatherings. These are the first glimmerings of what we might recognize as human culture, the first tentative steps on the long road to art, to religion, to science and philosophy and all the achievements of the modern mind. But the journey is far from over. as Homo erectus gives way to new species, to Homo heidelbergensis, to the Neanderthals and Denisovans, and ultimately to our own kind, Homo sapiens. The story of human evolution takes new and unexpected turns. For in the taming of fire, in the birth of culture, in the first bold steps out of Africa, Homo erectus set the stage for all that was to come. As Homo erectus spread across the old world, from Africa to Asia and Europe, the stage was set for the evolution of new species that would eventually lead to our own. One of these was Homo heidelbergensis, a species that first appeared in Africa around 700,000 years ago. With a larger brain and more advanced tools than Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis was a formidable presence on the ancient landscape. Homo heidelbergensis was a skilled hunter, crafting wooden spears and stone-tipped spears to take down large prey. They may have been capable of speech and symbolic thought, as suggested by the presence of a gene related to language in their DNA. Some researchers believe that Homo heidelbergensis gave rise to both the Neanderthals in Europe and Asia, and to Homo sapiens in Africa, setting the stage for the next chapter in our evolutionary story. The Neanderthals were a remarkable species. Emerging around 400,000 years ago, they were well adapted to the cold climates of Ice Age Europe and Asia. With their stocky builds, short limbs, and large noses that helped to warm and humidify the cold, dry air, Neanderthals were built for survival in harsh conditions. But Neanderthals were much more than just tough hunters. They were skilled toolmakers, crafting a variety of stone tools for different purposes. They buried their dead with care and possibly even conducted ritual ceremonies, suggesting a complex inner life and a capacity for symbolism and abstract thought. Some researchers believe that Neanderthals may have had a form of language, although the extent of their linguistic abilities is still debated. As Homo sapiens began to spread out of Africa around 70,000 years ago, they encountered Neanderthals in the Middle East and Europe. The two species interbred, leaving a genetic legacy that persists in many modern human populations. Today, people of European and Asian descent carry an average of 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA, a testament to the complex intertwining of these two lineages. But Neanderthals weren't the only other hominin species that Homo sapiens encountered. In Asia, another group, known as the Denisovans, was also making their mark. Known mainly from DNA evidence and a few skeletal remains found in Siberia and Tibet, the Denisovans are still largely a mystery, but what we do know is intriguing. Like Neanderthals, Denisovans interbred with Homo sapiens, contributing to the genetic diversity of modern humans. Denisovan DNA is found in high frequencies in some oceanic and Southeast Asian populations, suggesting that these ancient encounters had a significant impact on the evolution of our species. Denisovans also adapted to the high-altitude environments of the Tibetan Plateau, developing genetic variations that help modern Tibetans to thrive in the thin air of the Himalayas. They used advanced stone tools and may have had cultural practices like jewelry making, as evidenced by the discovery of a beautifully crafted bracelet in a Denisovan cave site. As Homo sapiens continued to spread and thrive, the other hominin species began to decline. The last known Neanderthals died out around 40,000 years ago, while the Denisovans disappeared around 50,000 years ago. The reasons for their extinction are still debated, but it's likely that a combination of climate change, competition with Homo sapiens, and other factors played a role. But the legacy of these transitional species lives on in us. The interbreeding between Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovans has left a mark on our genomes, influencing traits like skin color, hair texture, and even our susceptibility to certain diseases. And so we come to the final act of our evolutionary story. On the plains of East Africa, 300,000 years ago, a new character enters the scene, Homo sapiens, the wise man. In many ways, Homo sapiens is the culmination of the trends that began with Homo erectus, taller and more gracile than the Neanderthals and Denisovans. With a brain that exceeds all its predecessors in size and complexity, Homo sapiens seems poised for evolutionary success. But the world into which Homo sapiens is born is a challenging one. The climate is unstable, oscillating between periods of warmth and bitter cold. Massive ice sheets advance and retreat. Sea levels rise and fall. Habitats shift and change with dizzying speed. In this world of constant flux, Homo sapiens will need all its wits to survive. With a combination of technological ingenuity, social cohesion, and sheer adaptability that is unmatched in the hominin lineage. From the earliest days, Homo sapiens is a creature of innovation. The stone tools of the Middle Stone Age, blades and points and scrapers of unprecedented sophistication, hint at a mind that is nimble and exploratory, always pushing the boundaries of what is possible. But it is in the realm of symbolism and culture that Homo sapiens truly shines. From the ochre crayons and pierced shell beads of Blombos Cave to the magnificent cave paintings of Lascaux and Altamira, the archaeological record of early Homo sapiens is replete with works of astonishing creativity and symbolic depth. These are not just pretty baubles or idle doodles. They are the manifestations of a new kind of mind, a mind that is capable of abstract thought, of envisioning worlds beyond the here and now, a mind that is shaped by language and storytelling, by the shared mythologies and belief systems that bind communities together. With this potent combination of technological skill and cultural sophistication, Homo sapiens is ready to take on the world. In a series of migrations and expansions that will ultimately carry it to every corner of the globe. From the savannas of Africa, Homo sapiens pushes into the Levant and the Arabian Peninsula. From there, it spreads into Europe and Asia, encountering and interbreeding with the Neanderthals and Denisovans, absorbing their genes and their knowledge into its own lineage. And then, in a burst of exploratory zeal, Homo sapiens takes to the sea. Crossing the narrow straits of the Indonesian archipelago, it reaches the alien shores of Australia and New Guinea. Braving the icy waters of the Bering Strait, it enters the Americas, the last great landmass to be colonized by humankind. Wherever Homo sapiens goes, it brings with it a tidal wave of change. Ecosystems are transformed, species driven to extinction, landscapes reshaped by fire and spear. In the blink of an evolutionary eye, Homo sapiens becomes the dominant organism on the planet, the proverbial bull in the china shop of nature. But even as it remakes the world in its own image, Homo sapiens remains a creature shaped by the primal forces of evolution, the challenges of survival, of finding food and shelter, of fending off predators and disease, of navigating the complex web of social relationships, continue to mold its body and mind. And as the millennia pass, as Homo sapiens spreads and diversifies across the globe, these challenges take on new and varied forms. From the frigid tundra of the Arctic to the searing deserts of Australia, from the dense rainforests of the Amazon to the windswept plains of the Serengeti, human populations adapt and evolve to suit their local environments. The result is a species of extraordinary diversity, a kaleidoscope of skin colours and body types, of languages and cultures and ways of being in the world. And here we are, at the present moment in the grand narrative of human evolution. Today, Homo sapiens stands as the dominant species on the planet, a species with the power to shape the world in ways that would have been unimaginable to our ancestors. But the challenges we face today are complex and multifaceted. Climate change, habitat destruction, and the sixth mass extinction threaten the very foundations of life on Earth. Wars and conflicts rage across the globe, fueled by ancient hatreds and modern weapons of terrifying destructive power. And on the horizon, the rise of artificial intelligence poses new and unpredictable risks, even as it offers the promise of transformative benefits. In the face of these challenges, it is easy to feel overwhelmed, to despair at the seeming intractability of the problems we face. But we must remember that our species has faced existential threats before and has always found a way to adapt and persevere. From the cognitive revolution that gave us language and culture, to the agricultural revolution that allowed us to settle and thrive in diverse environments, to the scientific revolution that unlocked the secrets of the universe, our history is a testament to the power of human ingenuity and resilience. For in the end, the ultimate measure of our success will not be the wars we win or the wealth we accumulate, but the legacy we leave behind. A legacy of wisdom and wonder, of empathy and understanding. A legacy that will endure long after we are gone, inspiring future generations to reach for the stars and to dream of a better tomorrow. Thank you all for watching. If you liked our first video, subscribe our channel for more of it. See you next time.